our country is so unbelievably divided. We're going to bring our country together, folks. We're going to bring it together. We have to bring it together.
I wanted this to be a serious election about the future of America.
I call him Little Marco, Little Marco. Hello, Marco. He said I had small hands. Actually, I'm 6'3", not 6'2", but he said I had small hands.
I'm just speaking out against bigotry and bullying wherever I hear it. I hear a lot of it from the Republican candidates.
We're very proud of what we are doing. We're proud of what we're going to continue to do. This is a campaign that's going to the Philadelphia Convention in July.
Well, Super Tuesday is here, the busiest day of the 2016 primary season. So here's a look at what's at stake right now. This map right here shows the states where primaries and caucuses are being held, 11 of them tonight. Texas, that's the big prize right there in the middle. Only Democrats will vote in Colorado, that's a caucus, and only Republicans will caucus in Alaska. Now, there are 865 delegates up for grabs on the Democratic side. Clinton or Sanders need 2,383 delegates. That will secure the nomination. You can see what's at stake tonight. Now, on the other side, 595 delegates are at stake for the Republicans. 1,237, that will clinch the GOP nomination. All right, joining me now to break down the importance of tonight's voting, Larry Levy, Executive Dean for the National Center for Suburban Studies at Hofstra University and a former political columnist for Newsday. So let's start off with the news that we have right now. Sure. 3 states, the polls closed about 7 o'clock, already projected winners, at least on the Democratic side. Georgia, Virginia, Vermont, those are the 3 states that have closed at 7. It looks like they're projecting Clinton to easily win Georgia and Virginia. Sanders looks like he may take his own state of Vermont. But
no real surprises in all of those.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was expected to do very well in the southern states where black voters predominated. And Bernie Sanders, well, I think that he could go home again and win his home state of Vermont.
Right. Now that seems to be, is that what's going to happen tonight? Because Bernie Sanders seems to be making a push out in Oklahoma, Colorado. I mean, it seems to be in those particular states where there is a disproportionate number of white voters.
That's right. And that's where Sanders is trying to make his stand. Vermont, of course, he's going to have. Massachusetts is neighboring Vermont, expected to win there. Minnesota's a quirky state. Jesse Ventura was elected governor.
That's true.
Once,
we heard that from Marco Rubio criticizing him.
Yeah. And it's a very white state. And Colorado would be a nice prize for Sanders. It's a swing state. It will play a major role in the November elections. It's got big suburbs that are decisive when you try to elect a president and Congress. And if he shows he can win there, he can then reconstruct the narrative that he does have at least some juice left.
But it seems like this may be a big night for Hillary Clinton as well, though.
Oh, well, no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a big night for Clinton. If anything, there's that welcoming home again of the Clintons to the black community, which turned their backs on them and went for Barack Obama. She's winning well in the South. But understand that most of the states tonight are either red states or blue states.
Okay.
The Reds are obviously going to go for the Republicans no matter what happens in the Democratic primary, and the Blues are going to go for a Democrat no matter what happens in the Republican primary. It just doesn't matter. Okay. But there are 2 states that are swing states. One is Virginia. Hillary Clinton looks like she's dominating. That says good things about her prospects for November. And the other is Colorado, and we're waiting to see that. I think it's a 9 o'clock call.
All right, let's jump on the other side right now. The Republicans, there are 5 people still in this race. Really, a lot of people think it's a 3-man race at this point. Right. Donald Trump expected to have a relatively big night. What are we looking for on tonight on the Republican side?
Donald Trump is going to be the big story, the headline story tonight. But it's who finishes second that will resonate and create a new narrative. If Marco Rubio can consistently get not just 20% of the vote, which you need to get the proportional delegate votes, but he can then lay claim to being the moderate conservative who can unite the party. For Cruz, it's all about Texas. That's his home state.
He has to win that
If
state.
he can't win that, he's gone, whether he knows it or not.
Right, and then we should point out that Texas is a proportional state unless one of the candidates gets 50% or more, and then it becomes a winner-take-all. But this could easily be a situation where within 11 states they divvy this up at least a big chunk of it 3 ways. Right?
I mean, there's a scenario where Trump can win most of the states, and the gap in delegates between him and Rubio and Cruz will not be that great, because now we're going to move in after tonight to winner-take-all states. And there's a scenario, again, if the other 2 stay relatively close, Rubio wins his home state of Florida, winner take all. You move to Michigan, you move to Ohio. You can close a gap from Super Tuesday. But, again, there's the media narrative of Donald Trump on an unstoppable roll, and the question is whether perception will become the reality.
Can Rubio realistically move forward if he doesn't win any state tonight? I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, there's still a path for Rubio. If he can consistently come in second place, and even if he comes in third place to consistently get 20%, he will get a proportional number of delegates. And that'll keep him in the hunt until he gets to his home state of Florida a couple of weeks later and goes after some of the other big winner-take-all states in moderate regions, purple states, blue states, where you may find more moderate Republicans, to be able to get those big bundles of winner-take-all delegates.
All right, well, we're just in the 7 o'clock hour. You're going to be here all evening with us. We're going to check back in with you at about 8:10. Again, we're going to have 4 more states, I think. The polls will have closed at that point. We should have some results, and we'll get your thoughts as the evening progresses. You'll be here all night, so I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Thank you for having me.
It is 8:12 right now, and Super Tuesday is here, the busiest day of the 2016 primary season. So here's a look at what's at stake right now. This map right here shows the states where primaries and caucuses are being held. Texas right there in the middle. That is the big prize for tonight. Only Democrats will vote and caucus in Colorado, and only Republicans caucus in Alaska. There are 865 delegates up for grabs on the Democratic side. Clinton or Sanders, they need 2383. That puts them over the threshold to win the nomination. There are 595 delegates at stake for the Republicans. 1,237. That puts you over the threshold for the GOP nomination. Joining me now once again to break down the importance of tonight's voting, Larry Levy, Executive Dean for the National Center of Suburban Studies at Hofstra University and a former political columnist for Newsday. We started off at 7 o'clock. I think we have some winners. We had a couple of winners at 7. But now we have some momentum on the Republican side. Let's start over on the Democratic side right now. So far, these are what's been called by the Associated Press: Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia for Hillary Clinton. Senator Bernie Sanders has won Vermont. That's his home state. He won that handily. It was like 80-20, wasn't it?
Right. Well, like I said before, shows you can go home again.
He did. He came home. Now, on the Republican side, not a big surprise here. So far, the Associated Press has called Donald Trump the winner in Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, Tennessee. He's the only Republican that's won a primary state so far. It looks like right now, from what I see, it's a race for second place in a couple of these states. Rubio and Cruz are in Georgia. They are 20 to 21% right now fighting for second place.
Right.
Is that what tonight's really going to be about, those two fighting for second place?
Rubio and Cruz have got to be able to step up and say at the end of the night, I'm the viable alternative to Donald Trump.
Right.
And if Cruz wins Texas, which we'll get maybe in about an hour, he can make a claim, hey, I'm the only guy who's beaten Trump, and I've done it twice.
Right. And he won in Iowa, so we should start out. That was the first primary. It was a caucus, but
and
he
Rubio,
won.
if he puts up a string of second places and stays really close to Trump in Virginia, where they are neck and neck with about 65% of the vote in, then he would be able to say, hey, look, I'm the guy who has won in a big, diverse, cosmopolitan state, the kind of state that determines national elections.
Right, and you mentioned earlier, Virginia is this swing state
Sure.
now.
We used to say the big three was Ohio, Florida, and Pennsylvania. Those are the big 3 swing states. But you have to throw in Virginia now. You have to throw in Colorado and a handful of others. And the candidate that can show they can play in those big sandboxes are the ones who can lay claim to being potentially a strong candidate in November.
Right.
Today's Super Tuesday, but it's not Final Tuesday.
Yeah, we should point out in 08 and in 12, Obama took Virginia, so that truly is a state that can go either way, despite the fact that it's in the South. So how are we looking right now because in Vermont, I see that Kasich seems to be making a showing, in at least a second place.
Right. Well,
is he going to do anything
Vermont
tonight?
is a mild-mannered New England state. It is very different than New Hampshire, where you have a whole bunch of iconoclastic libertarians. Vermonters, remember, they elected Bernie Sanders as a socialist for years and years and years. So they're comfortable with progressive candidates. And when it comes to Kasich, he's probably, and it's hard to use the word fully, but he's the most progressive-like Republican in the field.
And he has said, he hasn't won a state, and he's been polling pretty low so far. He's still in the race, and he's pledged to stay in at least through. He's the governor of Ohio. He's pledged to stay in at least through Ohio. Is he in a position to swing this in one way or the other with enough delegates?
Well, Kasich's play was basically to stay viable until, as you say, Ohio and a few of the other bigger northern winner-take-all states. He's not doing very well tonight. He's going to face tremendous pressure, particularly if either Cruz or more likely Rubio breaks out of the second place pack.
Right. Okay. So at least let's just recap real quickly. Trump has won Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Massachusetts. He's the only Republican so far that has won a state, and those are the 4 states that he's won right now in the primary. Right. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton has been declared the winner in Georgia, Virginia, Alabama, Tennessee, pretty hardly.
Again, no surprise with Clinton. This is the so-called SEC, Southeast Conference primary, and she's running through the South, like she's going for a national title.
Right, and you have a higher percentage of African-American voters in the South, where she plays better, too.
That's right, and in some states, well over 50%.
Right, and Bernie Sanders seems to be playing at least more to the states that have a higher population of white
which
voters.
is why he's looking toward Massachusetts, where with not that much of the vote counted, they are pretty close. He's looking to Minnesota, another pretty white state, noodling around in Colorado, and Minnesota.
All right, and he said no matter what happens tonight, he's going to stay in it, and Michigan's coming up soon. That's another state that he's going to be looking for.
Sanders is going to get, as he said in his speech tonight, he's going to get hundreds of delegates tonight. The gap will widen with Clinton, but he still will have a big passel of supporters, and he also has a ton of money.
All right, well, this are still early. We're still looking at the states. We're going to have you back at the 9 o'clock hour so that we continue to follow this. Appreciate your time all evening, Larry Levy.
Thanks for having me.
All right, it is 9:12 right now. The polls on Super Tuesday closed, except way out west in Alaska right now. It's still open out there. So here's a look at what's at stake. Again, this map shows the states where primaries and caucuses are being held. Texas, again, smack dab in the middle. Only Democrats caucused in Colorado, and only Republicans are in Alaska. Joining me now, once again, all evening, breaking down the importance of tonight's voting, Larry Levy, Executive Dean of the National Center for Suburban Studies at Hofstra University and a former political columnist for Newsday. All right, so here's where we're at right now. I don't know if we're going to do the Hillary Clinton first. She has 6 states right now has been declared winning on her side: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. Bernie Sanders so far has won Vermont. It looks like Oklahoma is still kind of in play right now. He may win this tonight overall in Oklahoma. You said earlier that's not a big surprise. But first, let's go to Donald Trump. He has won 5 declared wins right now: Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, Tennessee, and Virginia. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Ted Cruz looks like he has pulled out 2 states, his home state of Texas, not a big surprise there, but Oklahoma. Looks like he's edged that out as well.
A neighboring state. Massachusetts for Bernie Sanders next to Vermont.
Let me ask you this about Virginia, because Virginia, that surprised me. It may not surprise you, but I mean, that is the GOP establishment lives in Northern Virginia. I mean, that's basically their home base. And
yes,
yet,
they do, but it's a big state.
It's a big state.
And it has some really rural pockets. It's got places that are very conducive to Tea Party voters and evangelicals and others that you might call extreme conservatives.
And Trump, is that good news for Trump that he takes a state like Virginia?
It's good news, but it's not so good news. The headline's going to be Donald Trump, kept rolling. There's no question about that. He'll win almost all, except maybe 2 states. And but his average margin of victory.
And we talked about this earlier. I want you to explain this because he's winning by 30s and 40s. And talk about
his average margin of victory tonight. Looks like it's going to come in about where it's been coming in, 37, 38%. So if you're in the Republican establishment and you're looking for a pathway to stop Donald Trump, you look at those numbers and you say, hey, 63% of Republicans are consistently voting against him. And if you could get the other 4 to consolidate, it wouldn't all go to the other candidate. Trump would probably get some of Carson's, he would probably get some of Cruz, he might even get some of Kasich, who knows. But the reality is that there are a lot of anti-Trump votes out there, even in the Republican Party. And that's, by the way, what scares the establishment into thinking that if he is the candidate, he might be a disaster for the candidates lower down
because
on
there's such an anti-Trump vote
right.
out there that his ceiling may be where he's at right
That's right.
now.
And it may cause other Republicans to stay home if he's the nominee, and that would hurt United States Senate, Congress, even state legislative candidates.
Okay, well, let's move over to the Democratic side
Sure.
real quick. Hillary Clinton seems like she's dominating the night. Not a big surprise.
Nope.
She seems to be holding her own. It's pretty close in Oklahoma right now. That's a state that Bernie Sanders was really trying to
Right, because it's a predominantly white state, not quite as white as Vermont or perhaps Minnesota, but it's definitely a place where Sanders put a lot of effort in. It's a caucus state where progressive liberals tend to show a lot more energy and come out in greater numbers. So, but that's running neck and neck. So you could say, well, a win's a win if he pulls it out, but he needs to start winning. He needed tonight to start winning by a lot because these are allocated proportionally. So basically, if they come in 51-49 in a place like Oklahoma,
they're pretty much splitting the
they're
delegates.
splitting the vote. That's right.
And in Massachusetts is very close too. Now Massachusetts had a lot. They have a Republican governor right now. The state has had a lot of people move from the voter rolls from the Democratic Party, identifying themselves as Democratic to independents, but she's still holding her own.
For a very blue state in presidential elections, Massachusetts does elect Republicans from time to time. You mentioned the governor. And Mitt Romney, of course.
Mitt Romney, of course,
was another example. And U.S. senators. But there's some thinking that these are different kinds of Republicans. These are the Republicans that a lot of the Southern and Western Republicans call rhinos, Republicans in name only.
Right. So maybe more of a Kasich type of Republican.
Yes, and Kasich seems to be doing pretty well in Vermont.
Okay. Are we going to see people drop out after tonight? I mean, everyone's vowing to
Well,
to
I
go
have
on.
to tell you, the story of the night, the secondary story of the night is Cruz winning 2, having a couple of second place finishes. He'll be able to get up there, and we'll probably hear him crow, and he's second now, about being the only guy to beat Donald Trump. And he can say, I've done it 3 times. And of Rubio, his closest competitor, not the worst night. Rubio is going to get a lot of second places, which means he gets a lot of delegates. But this thing is going to go on for a while, and that hard ceiling of 36, 37, 38% is going to keep working for Trump.
All right. All eyes moving to Michigan, and then March 5th, and we're going to have another winner-take-all states after this. So we'll see how this continues to unfold. Appreciate your time tonight. I know that you were going to stick around a little bit longer and have your more analysis tonight. Appreciate your time, Larry Levy. When we come back, Bill Corbell will have your 7-day hyperlocal forecast, plus the Suffolk Village trying to ban shops that cater to people who smoke e-cigarettes. And you better have some deep pockets if you want a house that looks even close to this, and have a bedroom that's even close to that view. How much that kind of luxury costs in tonight's Long Island Homes.